Hi, my name is Maria Hernandez and welcome to my video explaining viruses. What is a virus? The dictionary definition of a virus is the following. An infective agent that typically consists of a nucleic acid molecule and a protein coat, is too small to be seen by light microscopy, and is able to multiply only within the living cells of a host. In words easier to understand, viruses are simply small infectious agents that can only replicate inside the cells of living organisms. Viruses are much smaller than animal cells and are actually not considered cells because they do not have the components that make a cell up. They lack a cell membrane, DNA, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. They also require a host to survive. Now we'll be moving on to viral anatomy. Viruses are mainly made up of two parts. The first part is the nucleic acid, which can be either DNA or RNA, and a protein coat or capsid is the second part. A capsid is simply the coiled or polyhedral structure composed of proteins that encloses the nucleic acid of a virus. Viruses can also sometimes have what is called a viral envelope. Here is an example of what a virus looks like. The protein coat is on the outside, while the nucleic acid, which can either be DNA or RNA, is located inside of it. Now I'll be going over the two main infection strategies for viruses. The two main infection strategies are the lytic and lysogenic cycle. I will begin by going over the lytic cycle. In the lytic cycle, many new phages are made, which results in the death of the host cell. In this cycle, a phage first attaches itself to a host cell, and then it injects it with its DNA. Then, certain factors determine whether it will go through the lytic cycle or the lysogenic cycle. It depends on a few factors, such as how many phages infected the cell, whether or not the cell is in good growth conditions, and so on. After this new phage DNA and proteins are synthesized and assembled into phages, the cell then lyses, or in other words, is destroyed, and the new phages are then released and go on to start the cycle all over again in a new cell. Now moving on to the lysogenic cycle. In this cycle, phage DNA is replicated without destroying the host cell. As in the lytic cycle, the lysogenic cycle starts by a phage attaching itself to a host cell, and then certain factors determine that the lysogenic cycle will take place. If the cell is in stress or has low amounts of nutrients, the lysogenic pathway is typically activated. Once the lysogenic cycle is entered, the phage DNA integrates into the bacterial chromosome of the cell, becoming a prophage, and transmitting it to what is called a daughter cell. Cell divisions take place and produce a large population of bacteria infected with the prophage. Occasionally, a prophage does exit the bacterial chromosome and initiates the lytic cycle. Typically, when the lysogenic cycle takes place, the victim infected experiences either few symptoms that after a short time go away, but then in the future, sometimes even years later, more severe symptoms will be experienced, or the victim might not experience any symptoms until a large period of time has passed. This happens because the phage DNA basically hides itself in the host cell. Lysogenic cycles usually occur in healthier people so that phages can progressively infect and destroy cells, while in lytic cycles, people who are not that healthy are easier targets for viruses to infect and destroy cells because of the fact that those cells are much weaker. I will now transition on to what four common viruses are. There are many different types of viruses in the world, but these next ones are common viruses that we have heard of or maybe even experienced throughout our lives. The first is what we all know as chickenpox. Chickenpox or varicella is a contagious illness that causes an itchy rash and red spots or blisters, which are called pox, all over the body. Chickenpox is caused by the varicella zoster virus. It can spread easily. You can get it from an infected person who sneezes, coughs, or shares foods or drinks. You can also get it if you touch the fluid from a chickenpox blister. After you have had chickenpox, you aren't likely to get it again, but the virus stays in your body long after you get over the illness. If the virus becomes active again, it can cause a painful viral infection called shingles. The next virus I'll be talking about is influenza. Influenza is commonly known as the flu and is caused by influenza viruses. These viruses can be found in both animals and humans. The flu viruses are spread to humans by way of respiratory secretions. Some symptoms of influenza include headaches, fevers which are usually high, extreme tiredness in your muscles, aches in your joints, runny or stuffy nose, sore throat, aches, coughing, and vomiting. The third virus is rabies. Rabies is a preventable viral disease of mammals most often transmitted through the bite of a rabid animal. The vast majority of rabies cases reported to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, each year occur in wild animals like raccoons, skunks, bats, and foxes. The rabies virus infects the central nervous system, ultimately causing disease in the brain and death. The early symptoms of rabies in people are similar to that of many other illnesses, including fever, headache, and general weakness or discomfort. As the disease progresses, more specific symptoms appear and may include insomnia, anxiety, confusion, slight or partial paralysis, excitation, hallucinations, agitation, hypersalivation, which is an increase in saliva, difficulty swallowing, and hydrophobia, which is the fear of water. Death usually occurs within days of the onset of these symptoms. The last virus I'll be going over is herpes. Herpes is a group of several viruses that infect humans. Diseases caused by the herpes viruses include cold sores, genital herpes, chickenpox, and shingles. Herpes viruses are spread between people by way of body fluids, through the air, and through contaminated objects and surfaces. These are just a few common viruses, but there are a lot more in existence. Why is this important? Viruses are very small infectious agents that are much smaller than animal cells, yet they can easily infect anyone. That is why we must understand how viruses function so that we may prevent them from infecting us and the people around us. That concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching.